Hey, it is week 2, Spitting Loogs with our friend Tom Luginbill from ESPN. I'm Lance Taylor from the next round. Loogs, what is up? Week 0 is in the books. Nothing too exciting. I know you talked to Dunaway about this a little bit. My Trojans defense looks about like it looked last year, but I don't know how many.
Remember when we talked about that? By the way, last week we were like, what does SC need at? Do they need to win 77-3? Or I think you might have hit the score on the head. Does it need to be 56-28 or what have you? It's exactly what happened.
Yeah, it took me forever to get the Pac-12 network. Again, one of the reasons that league, unfortunately, is dissolving.
How'd you get it?
So I used it wasn't an app. All of our listeners said, you've got to go to this Uzi. It's an app you can get Major League Baseball, the NBA. You can get the Pac-12 network. So I went to download it. I went to the internet. I had to go to the website to pull it on. I dropped it on American Express. I started watching pregame and the Pac-12 network, and I was like, okay, this is working. Right when the game ticked, it started buffering nonstop.
Oh.
And my girl tells me, hey, it's because this is illegal and everybody's jumping on the broadcast right now. So then I went and did a 24-hour trial membership to Fubo, which I forgot to cancel, and so they charged the card like $479 the next night. Yeah. And so I ended up canceling that. So I'm going back on this app to see if it works. I don't know. Anyway, watching the game, giving up 3rd and 22 to Cadero, running the football. The defensive backs looked a little lost at times. My takeaway was if the offensive line can hold up, they can outscore anybody. But at the same time, they're going to be in a lot of track meets.
They're going to be in a lot of one-possession games. And, they allowed 7.3 yards a carry last week.
Terrible.
I mean, holy smokes. But anyway, that was last week. They did look phenomenal on offense.
Yeah, anything else that you take from week 0?
And I've said this to a lot of people. I've been really surprised by the reaction to Sam Hartman's performance. I mean, we are talking about a player, right, that has started 46 games. He's thrown for almost 30 or 13,000 yards. He wasn't just going to go in there and lay an egg, right? I mean, I think that he should have played like that. Now they completely outmanned Navy. I mean, it looked like varsity and JV. But let's see Notre Dame. Let's see Sam Hartman when they start playing maybe some other teams that are stacked up a little bit differently and can go toe to toe with them. But I wasn't surprised by what he'd done, having seen him in the past and just knowing how much football he's played. It's a big deal. It means a lot.
Yeah, we talked about it last week. I'm a big Sam Hartman fan. I've been a big fan for years, and what he's been able to do against teams like Clemson and Florida State. Yeah. So I've got this doesn't surprise me at all. I don't think the spotlight's going to be too big, and I think it's going to be fascinating to see Ohio State and Notre Dame. Again, we really don't know much about Navy, but I think this Notre Dame team, if those wide receivers can develop, could be pretty good.
Yes, and I think that's the one area where he actually had better players is the wide receiver spot. There were better players at Wake Forest than there is right now at Notre Dame. But that offensive line, the running back room, like they're going to be a hellacious play action team. They're going to see so much one high safety because everybody's going to have to load the box, and he's going to get a lot of one-on-one matchups. And so I expect them to make some plays on the outside just because some of those guys are really big, and you can just throw it up and let them go get it.
It's Spittin' Loogs with ESPN's Tom Luginbill. I'm Lance Taylor from the next round right here on Disrupt Media. It is brought to you by our friends at MyBookie. Football is back, so is winning season at MyBookie. NFL, college football, brand new cash-out system gives you options to bet and win all season long. To get started, go to mybookie.ag now. Register for an account for free. When you're ready to make that first deposit, just mention the promo code next round, and you're going to grab that welcome bonus. It is on the house. Okay, let's start first with this. So TCU, Colorado, 11 o'clock on Fox. We have got Tennessee goes at 11 o'clock hosting Virginia on ABC. Both had incredible quarterback play last year and both kind of surprises of college football. TCU obviously ultimately playing for the national championship with Max Duggan. Hendon Hooker had statistically the best season in Tennessee football history. Yeah. And Tennessee ends up winning 11 games, and they were in the mix. If they would have beaten South Carolina, they go to a college football playoff. But if I ask you which quarterback has a better chance to emulate last year's numbers, is it Chandler Morris at TCU or do you think it's Joe Milton under Josh Heupel?
Just from a consistency of performance standpoint, I would say it's Chandler Morris. If I'm going based off of the offensive scheme and what we've seen just about every single quarterback that's played in it do, you kind of have to lean towards Joe Milton in Tennessee. But I get concerned there because he's been so streaky his entire career. And for all of his athletic gifts, he doesn't play with consistent accuracy and consistent production. He's a lot like Jeff Sims was at Georgia Tech, who's going to be starting at quarterback, I think, for Nebraska on Thursday night. But the offense tells me I should pick Tennessee. The quarterback who played well when he played 2 years ago and then earned the starting job in Chandler Morris at TCU last year before getting hurt in their opener tells me he will be the more consistent performer. So I'm going to give the slight edge to TCU.
You know, going back to TCU, it seems like with all those one possession wins last year, that they're a team that really could drop back to 4 or 5 losses. But talking to you last week, you're high on TCU and what Sonny Dykes has been able to do here in year 2.
I just think they have a better roster than people give them credit for. And you're right. You know, they not only won one possession games, but they won a lot of road games, and they won, or not a lot, they won their road games, but they just kind of did everything right, and everything kind of fell into place for them. And sometimes you need that to happen to have a special season. There's no doubt. But I thought they did a nice job in the transfer portal, replenishing some of their losses, particularly at wide receiver and running back. I feel like they know exactly who they are and exactly who they do have at quarterback, and they have confidence now. You know, to me, that carries a lot of weight. Not to say Tennessee doesn't have confidence. Surely off of last season, how could you not have confidence? You know, both are replacing a marquee player at wide receiver, so you got to come up with an answer there for both teams. But I just think TCU, yeah, let's just say you cut half of those one possession games in half and they lose them. I still think they are a capable 8 to 9 win roster and can compete for the conference title in that league.
So Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, really good wide receivers. I know you were referencing Quentin Johnston. But Brew McCoy, he was a fascinating guy, you know, from early on. Is he going to Texas? Is he going to USC? And watching him in that abbreviated 2020 season, you saw some flashes. You saw some flashes last year. Could he be that go-to guy this year for Tennessee?
I think early on he's going to have to be. He's going to have to be the one that Joe Milton can depend on and rely on, and until they break in, you know, some of their other targets and find out who some go-to guys are, some guys that can complement him. So he doesn't see all of the attention defensively. But listen, that offense to me, and of course there's been a wide variety of it, whether it's Jeff Lebby at Oklahoma, whether it's Dana Holgorsen, whether it's Art Briles, and, you know, Josh Heupel and a slew of others. But there's always going to be good enough skill in that offense, in my opinion. Now, the one thing you might see a little less of is just the wide open Jalen Hyatt type downfield routes that we saw a lot of last year. You know, maybe some of those are a little bit more contested, or maybe you don't quite get that matchup as often as you'd like it, because that offense, from a half field read perspective, it is set up to create one-on-one downfield shots if you're not in the RPO game. And so we'll see if they've got a guy that can take the top off just like they did last year.
It's Spittin' Loogs with Tom Luginbill from ESPN. He's got the Duke Clemson game, which we will get to here in a little bit, coming up on Monday night. It's brought to you by LancesLock.com. Football season's here. If you want to win, jump on board. Going into year number 9, we've only had one losing season. 57% last year in college football, 58% in the NFL. Jump on board. Daily, weekly, monthly, annual packages, LancesLock.com. Okay, so I didn't see 2021 coming for Mel Tucker in Michigan State. I didn't see last year coming for Sonny Dykes and TCU. If I asked you better situation in first year, we'll see Matt Rule in Nebraska play Minnesota on Thursday night. We'll see Hugh Freeze finally make his debut for Auburn against UMass on Saturday. I heard today that Matt Rule's got anywhere from 63 to 65 new players that are coming in. So that roster is a total unknown. The same for Hugh Freeze. I forgot what the number is. I think it's in the 40s for Auburn and Hugh Freeze. But which one of these coaches has a better opportunity to get better each and every week with that roster and maybe beat a team or two they shouldn't?
I would lean towards Auburn because I think he inherited a better nucleus of players, more definitives of returning starters, not counting the guys that they brought in through the transfer portal. And whether it ends up being Peyton Thorne for the entire season or a mix there as Robbie Ashford, I think will still have a package and be a part of the run game. I think they're going to be a more consistent football team under center. I really believe that. Nebraska's got some components coming back on defense as well. I just don't know if they're as talented top to bottom, and I don't trust Jeff Sims. I think Jeff Sims is uber talented, but he, for whatever reason, has never been able to put it together, and he's battled some injury issues too. So that leads me to look at Hugh Freeze gets his quarterbacks to play well, right? And he's had a variety of different styles and shapes and levels of athleticism. I think they're going to be good, and then they've got enough guys on defense, a really experienced group on defense coming back, that I think they'll be the better of the two teams.
So Matt Rule is a fan of the next round. He's got gear. I'm a big fan of Matt Rule. And
me too.
You go back, your network was there in Philadelphia when Temple, I think they hosted Notre Dame on a Saturday night, and Temple shouldn't be that good. And that was Matt Rule building that program. Now you go, I saved there. Now you go to a program like Nebraska, who's got one of the best fan bases out there. Now, Nebraska's obviously take to dip. We remember back in the 90s when that was, they were dominating college football.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this first. How is Nebraska's collective? I know it's always been difficult to recruit there post Tom Osborne, but it seems like they got incredible fans. So you would think that they would have money they would want to give to the program.
They have everything you could possibly want as a college football athletically resourced institution, except for one very important thing, and that is proximity to elite players. And that's where the challenge is at Nebraska now, because, forget name, image, and likeness, forget the transfer portal. Those things can obviously help you. And from a collective standpoint, yes, Nebraska can play with the big boys in that game. But when it comes to recruiting, and recruiting has become such an accelerated race now. So it's identifying and getting kids to your campus, to your camp, when they're freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and having them come onto your facility and into your town. And that's really hard to do. That's really, really hard to do because you're oftentimes having to go multiple states away, right, to have access to the caliber of player that you would need to have to compete or win a Power 5 conference championship. So that means you're going into everybody else's backyard too, against other competitors that have similar resources to you. So, when you look at the map of the United States and you look at Nebraska and look at the states that they border on: South Dakota, Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, Wyoming, Colorado, right? So
that's pretty good. Do you have a map in front of you?
No, I've studied the numbers on this one. And, and it's so in those bordering states, right, we might have on average 8 to 12 players a year that would be in the ESPN 300 combined in those states, including the state of Nebraska. So again, when a Clemson, an Auburn, a Georgia, an Ohio State, an LSU can, as a coaching staff member, can get in their car and drive 30 miles in any direction and come in contact with probably 50 elite players, that's a big challenge for Nebraska. Not saying that it can't be done, but it hasn't been done yet. You referenced the 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and I've said this tongue in cheek, but I do think there's some truth to it. The decline of Nebraska's football program kind of occurred at the advent of cable television. Because if you remember back in the old days, there was only a handful of teams playing on national television because there was 3 or 4 networks, right? There were only so many bowls, right? So not everybody was going to a bowl. Then cable television happened and all this influx of money started to happen. So guess what? The arms race was created. More bowls start to come onto the scene. Everybody's playing on television. We reduced scholarships from 105 to 85. We have limited walk-ons now. We used to have unlimited walk-ons, which was a huge advantage for Nebraska's programming. It's a storied program on the walk-on side of things. So I think the landscape changed in a way that did not help them. And then when you remove yourself from the Big 12 and you go into the Big 10, and parents or families or what have you aren't necessarily going to be able to see their son play when he comes to play, let's just say in a given year, at Baylor, at TCU, and at Texas, right? Because those games are gone now. So there's challenges there that weren't there in the 90s, plain and simple.
Yeah. Hey, when I talk to younger guys and I tell them one of the best college players I ever saw was Tommy Frazier, and they're like, come on, a Nebraska quarterback? And I'm like, dude, in that system was incredible. I wanted to ask you, how well would his game translate today? I just didn't see him throw the football enough.
Better than then. I think so. Because I think you're essentially taking everything he did, backing him up and putting him in the shotgun. You're still single wing football, zone read. You'd still have all the motion stuff. You'd have quarterback counter, quarterback power, the keep off the zone, like moving the pocket, throwing on the run. I think he would have been a nightmare in today's game.
It's Spittin' Loogs with ESPN's Tom Luginbill. We do this each week right here on Disrupt Media. It's brought to you by our friends at MyBookie. Remember, you can get started really simple, mybookie.ag. Register for that account for absolutely free. When you're ready to make your first deposit, use that promo code NEXTROUND. You'll grab the welcome bonus. It's on the house at mybookie.ag. So one of the best games in all of September last year in the regular season was UTSA hosting Houston. 3 overtimes. I think it was like 37-35. And we get that rematch again this weekend, 6 o'clock, Fox Sports 1. It's in Houston. UTSA, Frank Harris coming back for year number 6. You hear he gets $1 million NIL deal. I think Jeff Traylor is one of the best coaches, not only in the Group 5, in all of college football. I love this UTSA team this year. I don't know what to expect out of Houston with Clayton Tune now gone to the NFL, playing for the Arizona Cardinals. Seems like Holgorsen, even after 8 wins last year, is on a little bit of a hot seat. What do you expect in this matchup in these two teams for 2023?
I expect a very evenly matched ball game. What I think is really interesting is it's a different style of quarterback now for Houston with Donovan Smith coming over from Texas Tech. You essentially went from Clayton Tune, who, by the way, made the Arizona Cardinals 53-man roster. You kind of go from we're going to throw it, we're going to do all this and that. And now you have this guy that adds just so much more to make you more difficult to defend. So I'm going to be interested to see, the type of fun that Dana Holgorsen has with his quarterback that now can provide an element that maybe they didn't have with Clayton Tune. And just as I say that, they're playing against a team that returns the bulk of their roster, won 11 games last year, right? And the quarterback's going into his 7th year. Like, to me, there's huge advantages there. What are you going to throw at him that he hasn't seen so far? Of age and maturity and the amount of snaps that he's taken. I like UTSA, the slight edge of this one.
Last year it was Tulane representing the Group 5. Nobody saw that really coming.
Right.
If I was to, and they're the favorite this year, if you look at Vegas totals, I said one of my 3 Friday guarantees last week was UTSA will go 11-1, and they will represent the Group 5 this year. There's a lot of other teams in the mix. I mean, South Alabama and Troy right here in state are really good.
Yeah.
Obviously we mentioned Tulane. If I had to put you on the spot and say, give me a Group 5 that will represent this year, do you have anybody in mind?
I would say it's either South Alabama or UTSA.
Okay.
I think, and again, that game with Tulane this week, obviously that's an important one for something like that to happen. But
that's a tough start for Willie Fritz. You've got South Alabama, and then next week you got Ole Miss rolling in.
I know, and I have that Ole Miss game as well. Off the short week of the Clemson FSU game, and I ended last season prior to our bowl game having the American Athletic Conference Championship. And you're right, and Tulane is also replacing 3 coordinators. All 3 of their coordinators are brand new, and they've lost some pretty good components on defense. But their quarterback Michael Pratt's coming back, and what they did to SC in the Cotton Bowl, like, they won't be intimidated by Ole Miss. Now, can they play with Ole Miss? I don't know. We'll find out. But Ole Miss going in there, and I mean, it's going to be a 2:30 kick. It's going to be hot and muggy. That thing should be real interesting. If Tulane obviously can get past South Alabama, who I think's got a really good football team.
I love me some New Orleans. It's one of my favorite places to go. It's a little dirty. It's a little dangerous. I just don't like it in the heat. I hate my balls sweating when I'm on Bourbon Street.
Oh man, you're so right. And just imagine having to wear a shirt and tie.
Oh.
So
will you stay a night? Will you stay? Well, I guess you'll be in production meetings on Friday night, so you'll be there Friday night. And what time's the game kick? 2:30.
We're 2:30, but because of my Sunday Sirius XM show, I can't get home to do it. So I'll stay the night, do the show from the hotel room, and then fly home the next day.
You can have a little fun. You can have a little fun around the game.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's Alabama, Texas that night, right?
It is. Yeah. And I'm trying to decide if we're going to go down Tuscaloosa or not. It's just going to be so damn hot. And there's so many good games next weekend. I mean, I'm excited. People are dogging out the slate for week 1, but there's like 4 or 5 premier games. We're about to get to one of those in a second, but I'll take anything we can get at this time of year.
Yeah, listen, the fact that we saw real live football and we were watching and evaluating and enjoying it and not talking about conference realignment, I think that's all anybody could ask for, whether it's week 0 or week 1.
That's a win. We will get to some entertainment here in a little bit on Spitting Loogs. It's brought to you by LancesLock.com. Again, football season is here. It is time to win. We're coming off an incredible fall last year. Again, we've only had one losing season. You can get daily packages, weekly packages, monthly packages, annual packages, free play every single day, LancesLock.com. Okay, LSU, Florida State. That is the premier game. I think if you asked 100 people, they're going to say their number one game that they have to watch is LSU, Florida State. 2 legitimate top 6, 7 teams, 2 legitimate teams to go to a college football playoff this year. Last year, that was one of the most disgusting games. It had a lot of drama at the end, Luginbill, but there were turnovers, there were penalties, block kicks. Yeah, it wasn't aesthetically a great product. It seems like these two coming in are kind of fine-tuned and ready to roll.
Yeah, I think these 2 teams are geared up big time. And you know what? Especially on the LSU side of things offensively, they know so much more about who they are, right? Like, I didn't feel like in that opener they unleashed Jaden Daniels and just turned him loose, which they end up doing as the season progressed. They didn't know that Mason Taylor was going to be a difference maker, right? They started 2 offensive tackles that were true freshmen. Right? And it's a brand new scheme in year 1, new coaches, and they just, quite honestly, they made more mistakes, right? That's what it was. And I think we'll see a lot less of that. I think we'll see a much cleaner football game. Both teams are ultra confident. I don't like the Mason Smith ruling. That's for another conversation, but that's a big blow. I mean, that's arguably the best defensive tackle potentially in college football. And I listen, I think LSU's got a chance to be really, really good. Now, Jaden Daniels can't regress. Like, he can't do, if you remember his freshman year at Arizona State, and then his sophomore and junior year, he regressed. So we need to see him take another step up, and they could be really good. And then, on the Florida State side, I'm going to be very, very interested to see how they handle all of this hype, like how they handle all of this adulation and pats on the back, because for decades they were a program that dealt with that. It was a part of their culture. Everybody knew they were going to be good. They knew they were going to be good. They go out and play good. But this group so far that's been in the program that Mike Norvell's taken over, they haven't had an off season like this, right? They haven't had the types of off seasons where everybody on campus is so excited because there's a potential college football playoff team or a potential national championship contender. And that's going to happen now. And, what do they do? Do they use it as motivation? Does it tighten their focus? Or does it go the other way on them, where they get so caught up in it that they don't meet the expectation and they disappoint? And I don't know what to expect in that realm, just because we haven't seen it yet. But I do know one thing. Mike Norvell fixed that locker room. Mike Norvell fixed what was going on internally there, whatever it was. Because even on some of those down years, and our crew had them, you didn't walk on the field and look at Florida State and say they didn't have athletes. Like, you didn't look around and go, oh, they got no players, Well, they're running around with Cam Akers, right? They're running around with a lot of guys, and they just weren't very good. I didn't think as a team. And I think that dynamic is probably Mike Norvell's greatest achievement to this point.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I can't wait to see how they handle the hype. The last time we saw them this hyped up, they opened up against Alabama. DeAndre Francois, he goes out of the game. They get blown out. Everything seemed to fall apart for that program after that game that night.
And wasn't that 5-2? Like they were number 5 versus number 2, wasn't it?
Yep,
yeah.
Sure was.
So it's like, yeah. And you're like, what happened? Like it all just, and I think, again, oftentimes that's about people more so than it is sometimes about a lack of talent.
Okay, so I've talked to people that are casual college football fans, and they're like, we've got a Monday night game. It's Labor Day. I don't have to work. And then they look at it, and they're like, oh, damn, it's Clemson at Duke. And I try to tell people, Mike Elko is one of these guys, watching him as a defensive coordinator. Dude knows football. And in year one, Duke was not an easy out. They whipped Miami's ass down in Miami. This is a team that's got a quarterback in Riley Leonard, one of the more versatile quarterbacks in all of college football. And I expect Clemson to be better. I think Klubnik's going to be better. I don't know where you sit on Clemson. I've got them in the college football playoff this year, but I still think Duke can make this a competitive game for 4 quarters. Do you agree? And you'll be there.
Yeah, I'll be there. And seeing how they played last year was really the key to all of it. Like if you did a coaching clinic on what are the necessary things you have to do right to ensure a win, like, it would be field position, third down conversion rate, turnover margin, red zone scoring percentage. Like there would be all these things that would dictate outcomes in your favor. And they literally did all of them right, like all of them. Plus 16 in turnover margin. When they were over 40% on third down, they were 8-1. Okay. They created negative plays on defense, which means they flipped field position often. And the question is, can they duplicate that? Like, can they go out against a team that, as an overall 2 or 3 deep, is going to have better players than Duke? Let's call it what it is. That's okay. But can they go out and have that type of winning football to keep them in that game in 4 quarters? What I've seen on tape so far, and what they've shown me in terms of their style of play, I think the answer is probably yes. I really do. They'll be well prepared. They are. They've got a ton of experience, and I said this, I think, on the show with you guys before. I think Riley Leonard might be one of the most underrated and underappreciated quarterbacks in the country. I mean, and he's not just a thrower. He can do all the other stuff with his legs. He kind of reminds me. He looks a little bit like a shorter Justin Herbert, a little bit. Wow. Not much shorter, but he's really long, and he's got a really long stride when he runs. Super accurate with the football. And again, I think when you're a first-year head coach and you inherit what was assumed to be a dumpster fire, and you happen to have a quarterback fall in your lap, like it gets you off the mat quicker, right? Like if you hit on a quarterback early, like Mac Brown did with Sam Howell, all right, and then all of a sudden your fortune changes like really fast. And so that's what happened with Duke. Now they got to carry it over into this year because I think you're right. I think Clemson is very, very good. Clemson's in the spot where they like to be with people talking about everybody else. So they can just go over and, as Dabo would put it, be little old Clemson. And so we'll see what the improvements are, how Garrett Riley impacts the offense, how Cade Klubnik fits into that offense. And let's not forget, those two are very familiar with each other because he would have seen a lot of Cade Klubnik in high school. They would have actively recruited him hard while he was at either SMU or TCU. So there's plenty of familiarity there.
I was surprised, and not to get into any Colorado bashing, but Travis Hunter was your first team All-American when it came to all-purpose guy. Will Shipley was second team. I'm a huge Will Shipley guy. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if Clemson wins the ACC, goes to a college football playoff, and he's got like 30 total touchdowns this year, and he's in New York as a Heisman finalist. He could legitimately
line up in the slot on every play and play wide receiver. That's how good he is in the passing game. So
I mean, he's Christian McCaffrey, right?
But he's bigger. He's a lot bigger. Yeah,
and probably doesn't have McCaffrey's speed, but
maybe not. But he's fast enough. He's one of those guys that's as fast as whoever's chasing him, right?
My man Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, right. And so the thing that's going to be interesting, though, is I think Clemson believes they've got a 2-headed monster at running back. They really like Phil Maffa. He's 6'1", 230 pounds. Do you remember when Lincoln Riley had those teams at Oklahoma when he was a coordinator and they had Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine on the field at the same time?
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a little bit of that. I really do. We're gonna see a little bit of that. I think Dabo loves the running back room, and that could be a little bit of a twist to that offense that people haven't seen in years past.
Holy hell, this has been like way too serious. 30+ minutes on Spitting Loogs with ESPN's Tom Luginbill. So let's transition a little bit into entertainment. Dunaway gives me a hard time on the next round about, I don't know how you have so much time to watch movies. Like last night, my little man, who by the way turned 16 today, he has never seen Good Will Hunting. So we sat down and we watched that. Of course, he thought it was fantastic. I've probably seen it 20 times. So that's not a hidden gem. We're going to try to give you a hidden gem each and every week, whether it's TV or film. Do you have anything to throw out there today?
Yeah, I have a couple of them. One's probably more of a hidden gem. The other one, I'm actually a little bit late to. It released earlier in the summer, but got onto Lioness, Taylor Sheridan's new show on Paramount, which is more of a
heard about it.
Yeah, it's more of a Middle East special ops, military type thing. Really, really good. And they waste no time like jumping into things like immediately. Really good. Zoe Saldana's in it. A bunch of actors that you've seen before, but you go, where do I know that guy from? Right? Nicole Kidman's in it. So
is that one? I guess that's probably Paramount, right? It's got to be.
That's Paramount. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm really enjoying that, kind of unexpectedly. And then there's this documentary on HBO Max that's produced actually by our boy Kenny Powers, Danny McBride. It's called Telemarketers.
I saw it, but I hate telemarketers so much.
You'll hate him after this.
Okay. So definitely watch it.
I would watch it. We didn't know what to expect, but the conduct of these people and their day to day, like, I don't know how this field even exists, Lance. And when you see it, you'll understand why I say that. So those two for me, pretty pleased with. And then I'm looking forward to, I don't know when I'm going to have the time to do it now that the season started, but I do want to see The Equalizer 3. I'm hoping it's better than 2. I don't know if they can top 1 because I thought Equalizer 1 was really, really good.
And Denzel's so good and everything, but watching the trailer, he looks like he's getting a little old. I mean, we're all going to get old, but you just wonder how long Liam Neeson and Denzel Washington can whip 20 people's ass in one movie.
Do you think Liam Neeson has like a lifetime contract? I don't know who the studio would be, but a lifetime contract to release one action movie a year?
I think he does. And I think he got like a shit ton of money on the front side. What blows me away is Schindler's List, fantastic movie. Not one of those you want to watch 3 or 4 times, but if you would have told me this guy, now he did Next to Kin before that. He was Briar, he was Patrick Swayze's brother. So he did a little action there. But if I would have gone Schindler's List back in the mid-90s to where he is now, I never would have thought his career arc would be a guy in his mid to late 60s whipping people's asses.
I wouldn't have seen that either. Just like a complete, it's almost like he saw this niche and decided, what the hell, I'll do Taken. And then Taken turns into 20 other movies. Like, it's unbelievable. They're pretty good. I like them. I like the movies he's in.
I mean, I liked Gray. Remember where he was the
Gray was fantastic.
Yeah. I thought that was really good. I liked Taken. I remember Liam Neeson though do you remember the movie from the late 70s, Excalibur?
Yeah. That's right. He was in that.
Actually in that. Gabriel Byrne was in that.
He's Darkman.
Yeah, I
remember
knew that.
Darkman?
Yeah. He's had a great career.
To go back to last week, and I recommended Talk to Me for you. Have you checked that out yet?
Well, it's only at the theaters.
Oh, it is? It's not streaming anywhere?
No.
Okay.
I haven't seen it streaming.
When it is, get on there. And then I think when we're on the next round, might have been a week or 2 ago, I told you about a show that's hard to find because nobody has MGM Plus. War of the Worlds.
Guess what? I got it with Fubo.
Bro, start watching it. It's awesome. And it's not what you think it is.
Okay.
They're going to lead you to believe it is, but it's not. And it is.
They're not going to give me a political message, are they?
No, we're going to have none of that nonsense.
Okay, good.
It is going, but it's a twist on the H.G. Wells thing, but they go down a different path. It's really smart. And I just remembered it because it's Gabriel Byrne.
Okay.
And that's what made me think about it.
Okay. Well, I'll throw one out there. 0-0-0 with Gabriel Byrne.
Seen it. Yep.
It's
On
unbelievable.
Amazon.
And
Yeah,
I've never
really
heard
good.
anybody talk about it. It was one and done. It was, I think, in 2020. I think it was during the pandemic or 2021.
Yeah.
But if you like organized crime that spans across the globe and how all the pieces come together, that's a really good one-off series. Hey, this is Spittin' Loogs. We do it every single week with ESPN's Tom Luginbill. It is brought to you by MyBookie. Again, football season is back, and so is winning season. To get started, go to mybookie.ag. When you're ready to make that first deposit, use that promo code next round. Grab that welcome bonus on the house from MyBookie.ag. Always great stuff. Enjoy Durham, North Carolina.
Yeah.
I would assume you probably have a little bit more fun in New Orleans the week after. But
you know what? Maybe so. I don't know. But this weekend's really special for me because the game's on Monday. I actually get to see my son play a high school football game. And he's going into his senior year, and that never happens for me. So
now, is he a quarterback like you were?
No, he's a long snapper.
Okay.
Pretty good one too. So I think he's going to have some opportunities.
Now, was this your like when you got him in the game early on, were you like, hey, look, there's a specialized position that people get scholarships for, and actually people get paid big dollars on Sunday to play this position now, and nobody wants to be a long snapper. It's actually brilliant.
So full disclosure, until he was about 11 and a half years old, his entire world revolved around Legos and superheroes, right? And I never pushed sports on him because I was the son of a coach. And one of the reasons why I think I love the game so much, I love to play it, I love to coach it, I love to broadcast about it, was because my dad didn't force it upon me. If I wanted to go play piano, go play piano. So I just let him be a kid and have fun. And then he came to us all of a sudden and said, I think I want to play flag football. I'm like, okay, great. It's a great way to start. And then he said, I think I want to actually play tackle football in middle school. I said, okay, but I don't want you to play until you're in 7th grade. So I noticed early he was bigger than everybody at that time. So he was playing center a little bit, and then he was playing defensive end, and he was out in our front yard, and he just kind of leaned forward and this is when I knew he didn't snap the ball with one hand. He took both hands on it and like snapped it. He was 12 and a half maybe. So he starts buying in, right? Like he gets really good. And fortunately in my world, I have some resources that I can put him with to help train him and get him pretty good. And exactly what you just said happened. So he goes from 7th and 8th and 9th grade, and he's all in. Then high school hits, and it's not cool to be the long snapper. So now it's, I only want to rush the passer. I only want to play defense. The other kids are catching up to him size-wise. I could tell that he was never probably going to be big enough to be an every down player, but he could be big enough to be a long snapper. And I regretted this, and I'm glad I stepped back. I credit my wife for it. I pushed him, man. And I was like, Quaid, you're missing an opportunity here. Like, get back to the long snapping. Now, he long snapped. He did it because his team needed him to do it, but he wasn't like all in. Then the light went on. It would have been last December, November, December, on his own. And next thing you know, he's out in our driveway every day with a target and a net backdrop, just snapping and snapping and snapping and snapping and snapping. It's all he's been doing for like the last year. Took some unofficial visits, went to several camps. He's got some FCS offers, and he's going to have some interest, I think, for some, preferred walk-ons with maybe some opportunities to earn. And so I'm glad he's kind of come around to it. Like the coach once told me, the bus never leaves without the long snapper.
And everybody talks about the pressure that's on the holder and the kicker or the punter. Nobody ever talks about the long snapper, the forgotten guy that's got to have that perfect snap. Never gets credit for it. So
unless he shoots it over your head.
Will he become the first ESPN 300 long snapper that you put in there?
Absolutely not. No.
Hey, Lugs, always fun, man. Again, enjoy Monday night. We're looking forward to a great weekend of week 1 college football.
Absolutely. Can't wait for next week, man.
See you, buddy.
See ya.